Hello, and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm Jess.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Leviathan, which came out in 1989. Directed by George P. Cosmatos. Co-written by David Webb and Jeb Stewart. Now, this film came out at an interesting time. 1989 and 1990 saw a slew of underwater action horror monster movies. Including this one, we also had Deep Star 6, which is the Sean S. Cunningham movie. There was The Evil Below. There was The Rift. There was The Lords of the Deep. And, of course, more famously, James Cameron's The Abyss. And so, because of The Abyss's more critical acclaim, it kind of submerged all these other films
sank beneath
into
the waves.
obscurity, pretty much. But Leviathan was one of those films that I always remembered. It was a blockbuster rental, and then it was recorded off TV and just kept to the VHS locked away somewhere.
It's reliable, disposable action fun.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, the story follows Stephen Beck, along with an American deep-sea mining crew who discovers a sunken Soviet vessel. The crew bring back some of the vodka, which starts to infect some of the crew, creating a monster, which slowly picks them off one at a time. It's a pretty generic setup, but this film is elevated, I would say, by its fantastic cast and crew.
Yes.
Legendary special effects creator Stan Winston and his team, Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gillis, pulled out all the stops to elevate this film from its kind of B-movie level premise into something in the realms that perhaps Alien achieved.
Yeah, I mean, the script itself is from really premium writers, but
it's the same two that brought you Die Hard and Blade Runner. Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because it doesn't feel like that.
No, it's definitely inferior to all of the films we mentioned.
Yeah, it's always difficult because you read a lot of stories about how scripts get altered by the directorial teams or the production teams or in edit. So you can never be sure, but it just feels like this is a disjointed... It's The Thing a little bit, it's Alien a little bit.
It's like it's consumed all those other movies, and
but it doesn't have an... I mean... The monster, the creature feature, shall we say, of the creature of the feature is quite cool, but it's not Geiger Alien cool. It's not. It's cool. It's just kind of.
It's based in some kind of reality where, when they were researching the film, they looked at all the different strange aquatic life of the ocean, and then just merged it all together with some human body parts.
And yeah, it is a sort of a little bit of body horror, but as the story progresses, you kind of realise there isn't a lot of universal rules in play. So the monster sort of does what the script needs it to do and goes away when the script doesn't want it around anymore. It feels like an object of a tool of storytelling rather than a believable threat, which is that's the biggest issue with the film, I think. The monster's actual realism is in the narrative of the world rather than the sequences in are really cool.
Yeah.
But its narrative locking within the world is the biggest problem in this film. The whole film's a bit of a cliche.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's a fun film.
Oh, it really is. And I think like I said, it's really elevated by its fantastic cast. Yeah. We have Peter Weller, who plays our lead, Stephen Beck, who is sort of in command of this mining crew.
Yeah, he's a geologist. One of many strangely overqualified people working on a mining rig in the bottom of the ocean.
Right. We have Amanda Pays, who plays Elizabeth Williams.
As it turns out later, she wants to be an astronaut and is signed up in 2 days after she leaves this dive.
This is like her pre-astronaut training.
I know. I'm like, well, it makes sense, I guess.
Right.
And then I'm sitting going, okay, bit overqualified again. Astronauts are generally quite qualified, but sure, go mining at the bottom of the ocean. Then,
we have Richard Crenna, who plays Dr. Glenn Thompson,
who is a microbiologist, also one of the world's premier, he knows 17 languages. Well, I'm exaggerating. I think it's not that much of an exaggeration. He knows 12 languages or something.
He's super overqualified, and he's got this awful job underwater because no one else would hire him. Yeah. It's kind of like the Alien 3 Doctor.
Yeah.
And
that's fine. I mean, again, this film... That's where I'm like, this script was written by the same people. It's the kind of, it's a bit blunt on the heads, but again, it's fun, and
They're
again,
all archetypal
they're all.
characters.
It's, as we said, a tiny bit of a cliche that when the answers are needed, there are people conveniently qualified to answer them, which is better than some films which don't have any of that. So
Sure.
you kind of would be more frustrated if suddenly the doctor, who's just a doctor who works, as a medic on this underwater station, and I was like, oh well, it's actually, biologically speaking, this and this and this and this and this. So instead, you got the exposition coming from Rambo's
Lieutenant Colonel, yeah.
the colonel from Rambo. So it's like, oh, I believe this. Again, great casting, but you were going Ernie Hudson, I believe, is in it
Ernie
as well.
Hudson is fantastic
Like,
in everything that he is in, and he delivers such a charm and such a presence to this film.
I know I wouldn't call him like an Oscar-winning actor, but he's got charisma.
He's a great character actor.
Yeah, yeah. He plays.
He's the everyday man as well, and he really shines in this film.
And that's true. They do. That's the one strength they get right. And he is kind of the linchpin of the kind of human side of the kind of acting. Because as much as I like Weller, I do feel Weller at times can be a tiny bit wooden, and that's something I think he delivers his lines very Shakespeareanly.
Yeah.
He's kind of very dry.
But he's got that face. He's just kind of he's interesting to watch.
Yes.
Because sometimes he's very subtle, and he does a lot with his eyes.
Oh no, absolutely. I think that's the issue. When I say wooden, I don't mean he's not. I don't like him as an actor. I think you're right. I think he's more. He's very subtle, which at times you want somebody who's a little bit more buoyant as an actor,
Sure,
which I think
sure.
Hudson reflects nicely against him.
Yeah, yeah. And filling out the cast, we also have Daniel Stern, who I think is a fantastic comedian in his own right.
Yeah, I mean, I remember him from my childhood. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the nicest. I mean, he stands out as a quirky character.
Absolutely, yeah. We have Michael Carmine, who plays Tony Rodero. We also have Meg Foster, who plays Miss Martin. Hector Elizondo, who plays Cobb. And we have Lisa Elbacker, who plays Bridget Bowman. So, Leviathan has a running time of about 1 hour and 40 minutes, and it is a bit of a slow burn in terms of getting to the horrific horror, body horror kind of creature feature
Yes.
moments. The film develops the characters quite well. We get to see them in their working environment, we get to see their interactions with each other, we get to see them sat around a table discussing their behaviour, their work behaviour. We find out that they've been down there for nearly 3 months. And then they're due to, go back to the surface and have time off before, the next team comes down or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're coming to the end of their shift. We have the kind of fake out scare moment where Jesus's suit has a pressure leak, and so they panic and try and rush him back inside and repair the suit and get him medicated. And then on the next trip out, it's Six Pack, who stumbles around and ends up falling off an underwater cliff, eventually disappearing, which causes Willie to have to go and look for him. And you have this kind of strange alien environment where it's like these tube worms coming out of the ground.
Yeah, and Willie, she's not great friends with him. They've already shown a friction, but it shows that they don't hate each other. It's kind of an interesting.
They definitely have
camaraderie.
like a family of friends kind of working environment.
Yeah, they piss each other off, but they're otherwise getting along.
But then again, Six Pack is kind of the sex hound, the pervert.
Oh, mama. What a pair.
But this is where I actually have to initially say the underwater effects here are pretty cool, and this is where most of them are shown because they don't do a
Yes.
lot. The rest of it, a lot of it is back on their facility. But this bit underwater, bar the tube worms, which I felt were a little weird looking, the wreck and the actual underwater pressure suits, really cool, really really nice set design. And
It was one of the
costume
things
design.
that caused a lot of arguments when they were running out of money. Director George, he looked at the underwater suits and he was like, they're not good enough, and got into a massive argument with Stan Winston, and they had to find some more money and redesign those suits, which were an apparent nightmare for the cast. Several of them passed out at times inside those suits because they were really heavy. Took them time to get in and out of them. They had to be spoon-fed while they were inside the suits. So it was a bit of a nightmarish shoot. But the underwater effects are really, really well captured here. They used a technique called dry for wet. It's a really good combination of using smoke, colored filters, particular lighting combined with fans, and kind of a slow motion to generate this effect. And it's really really effective.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in the heavy suits, I think the way the actors are moving, you feel like they're fighting through the water.
Yes.
And that's kind of funny in a way that the suits were probably inhibiting their movements and making their lives hell, but it paid off because that worked
Yeah.
quite well.
I mean, it's not long before Willie does find Six Pack, who had disappeared into a sunken vessel, and the monitor feeds back that it was the Leviathan and that it was a Soviet vessel.
And let's be clear, simple naming of films is often just put the name of the
ship.
which we did just look at a certain Harbinger Down, and the Down it didn't work. I'm nitpicking, but I just feel like keep your title short, concise, Harbinger, and that's enough. Just a foreboding word.
Leviathan
that's
really
enough.
works as a title, as the name of the ship.
And it's
you think of giant sea monster as well when you think of the title.
And
so.
that's, even though the ending doesn't quite deliver that, it is sort of reaching for that, I think.
Yeah. But Six Pack and Willie come back aboard, and Six Pack is kind of super excited because he raided the safe while he was in there.
Yes.
He gets yelled at by Beck, who told him that he was breaking all kinds of quarantine rules, that he shouldn't have gone radio silent. But at the same time, I'm just sat there thinking, that vessel's been there for like this whole time you've been mining, and you never discovered it until now.
Yeah, I know. Modern technology's come a long way, because the way we can literally just scan the seabed now, if you were doing a mining operation, you would have clearly scanned the area at least around you.
Right.
I guess, it's the nature of like technology then and now. So it's the story.
Part of me just thinks that it's the company up top just knew the ship was there and went, we're going to plant a mining crew right next to it.
I know, and especially the way corporate interact irrationally. We'll get to that. It's weird. That's another part of the story contrivances that are a little bit like, okay.
But then we get lots more character moments where the strange spider creature thing that they discovered.
The sea crab. Sort of a deep sea crab.
Six Pack uses it to scare Willie, and then Willie stashes it in Six Pack's bunk when he's in there to have some alone time. So, there's some kind of banter back and forth between the crew. It's just more world building, character building stuff.
And they're good actors, and it's a healthy interactions. It's all, it doesn't feel like it's too laborious. I mean, the setup is it kind of, you compare it to other films of the similar genre, like Event Horizon. You get it's healthy in the sense that you're definitely not annoyed to hang out with these people. I mean, Six Pack can grate a little bit, but that's kind of his character purpose.
Yeah.
And maybe again, it walks the cliche line a little bit in some areas, but I feel it's a fine film, especially when Doc finally shows up, who was absent for the initial issues because he was playing golf.
Right.
It's joked he's playing golf, but again, you're not quite sure what he was doing.
Well, it was an interesting character beat yet again for Peter Weller's Beck character, who's struggling to retain his command. There's a point where he's reading Management for Dummies, and he's not really up to the task of being in charge, but he steps up when the time's needed.
Yeah, it's made clear that he's been put there by his boss, Meg Foster's Miss Martin, because he's a geologist, and they were hoping a geologist would somehow get more silver. It's a little unclear what exactly a drill at a particular location. They were going to mine there anyway. Somehow the geologists can tell the difference between the rocks. But you would assume there would be machines to do that, or people would be remotely checking. Again, nitpicking aside, he's a geologist who's been put in charge of this, managing this whole station, which he appears to be a little out of his depth doing.
Thank you, sir, for taking care of that situation.
We'd seen Six Pack stash away the hip flask, which he saves for later, and he shares a glass with Bowman. It's not long after that Six Pack starts to show some strange body horror signs. He gets lesions on his back, he starts itching his arm, The Doctor takes a scale from his body and puts it under the microscope, and soon deducts, after the computer's best guess, that some kind of strange mutagenic effect is eating away at Sixpack.
He's being mutated and changed. And again, this comes into the key component of why the Doctor is kind of overqualified for his job, but then explains, like, he seems to be genetically being rebuilt. And again, the exposition here is all believable. It's all fairly well written.
I think it's the fact that Richard Crenna delivers it really authentically well. Like, when he has the realization of something horrible happening, the puzzled look he has, the pained curiosity where he's like, he doesn't quite understand it,
No.
quite horrified by it, but at the same time really curious as
Yeah,
well.
but he's curious, but he's also kind of immediately forewarning them. It advances pretty quickly and does die pretty suddenly.
It does. He does die pretty quickly. It's kind of unexpected. I was like, oh, he's dead already. And
Yeah.
when they discover his body, they report it back to Miss Martin, who's just like, damn it, you've still got 2 days, and if you don't fill your quota, it's 50% reductions on all of your pay slips.
Yeah, I know.
So-
and Miss Mine's the villain of the piece. Sort
Oh,
of?
absolutely. She's the face of this faceless company.
Yes.
Who's just making them work until they fill their quota.
Generic alteration.
Genetic.
Whatever.
Yeah, and Sixpack's not. They're not telling them Sixpack's dead, and
Yeah.
Doc's seeing all the crew look for similar signs.
Yes, he does a quick kind of investigation just to check their bodies.
But in
For
the
signs.
yeah, in the natural order of things, he goes through them one at a time.
Yeah.
And the last one he
Bowman.
doesn't quite get to.
Yeah.
Bowman is the one, obviously, who drank the vodka with.
She with Sixpack, and she's having her own nightmarish moment as she realizes her hair's falling out. Then she goes to find Sixpack and find out what's happening with him because of the state she's in. And you do get that horrific shot of his arm all opened up. You can see the scales, you can see pus seeping out of it,
Things moving beneath the skin.
things moving. It's horrific.
Yeah.
She completely freaks out, runs to the showers, and we will find her remains where she committed suicide for fear of those horrible things happening to her.
Yeah. And again, it's a brutal and kind of tragic thing, and it's pretty dark.
Yes, yeah. And so they put her body into the now morgue along with Sixpack, and of course the rest of the crew are now fully aware of some of the horrors that are happening around them. It's a few moments later, after they've done some more DNA tests and some more investigating, that they come back to check on Sixpack and find that his body has merged with that of Bowman in, a definite homage to John Carpenter's The Thing, where
Yeah.
there's some kind of conjoined horrible monster that still seems to be moving.
Yeah,
They
but they're not fully animated because they're both dead, but their bodies are merging. It's cool, but again, there's only so many stories to tell. I think the narrative goes. I mean, that you could there's and the ways you tell them and where you're telling them. So sure, I mean, true originality is incredibly rare to find, but you can twist your own flavour of ice
Yeah,
cream, as it were.
exactly.
This doesn't quite do it. And this is where I think it does fall down because there's some cool effects in this film.
Oh, absolutely. The visual
I don't want to
prosthetics and
undersell
makeup
them, yeah.
effects
I
are
don't
really
want,
good.
I don't unsell them, but I just feel like it's not necessarily in a way we haven't seen before better. Which,
Yeah.
if you're going to make a film and homage something, do it at least as well,
Right.
if not a bit better, or in a unique twist on it. This is where this may not be achieving that.
No, I think you're probably right. It's basically just taking the concept of Alien in The Thing and then just putting it underwater.
Yeah, which is fine. I know. I mean, it could have been done better. That's what I just think. But then again, as we said, the directorial and the writing and the other things. There's a lot of moving parts that clearly weren't
Working
clicking.
in tangent, yeah. Well, the crew decides that they're going to have to get rid of the remains. They don't want it on the station anymore, so they decide it's going to be a deep sea burial.
Yeah.
And so they bag up the remains, and whilst they're taking it to go and
Also,
and
all of them
flush the
carrying
bodies,
a very
they're all carrying the remains, but they notice that it's moving. And so they kind of... Some of the crew are just like, they're still alive in there. So they go to unzip the bag when the creature inside attacks and slashes Cobb pretty badly down the chest.
yes.
In their panic to get the creature now into the water and submerge it, when they activate the device, the creature trying to remove itself gets its leg caught and then severed.
Yeah, I mean, this is a cliche 101 at this point, because it's just like, let's open the bag that's wiggling. It's just like, no, you're going to chuck 2 corpses into the ocean, now they're wiggling. If they're saying help me, I would have opened it. And if they're not saying help me, I'll chuck them in the sea.
Right.
But yeah, the arm gets severed and makes a break for it.
Well, yeah, the leg disappears under the water and then it re-emerges later on, and you can see that it's still alive, like it's mutating into something else. So I'm like, okay, so maybe now there's 2 monsters. You've got the one you've just flushed out, and then you've got this severed limb, which is now mutating itself into another monster.
Yeah, I mean, that's not fully explained either. I guess a bit...
Again, you just think of the Thing monster, and you go, okay, so any severed limbs just becomes its own creature. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, essentially. And that is sort of... Yeah, but I'm still confused because you get multiple interactions later where there should be like multiple monsters, but it always seems to just be one.
Just to be the one. I can only guess that the monster outside or the severed limbs or whatever eventually rejoin up with the host
mass
creature,
emerge.
because they find that all of the blood has been drained out of the banks in the hospital
yeah.
ward. And Dr. Glenn, or Doc, realizes that the creature doesn't need to eat, it just consumes the blood.
That's just great. You're telling me we got a goddamn Dracula in here with us?
Yeah, that's a bit odd. I mean, it's cool, very vampire-like, but it is a plot hook they use later when they actually then draw blood to try to lure it out.
Sure,
Try to
yeah.
kill it and drive it from the ship. All the time, corporates like, there's a storm above you, you can't get out.
Of course, I love that old cliche.
That is funny, and they're faking there's a storm, which spoiler, they're actually faking that there's a storm up above. Because
the company's trying to realise how to actually deal with the problem.
But the other thing is, it's never made clear, again, this is the kind of script being ropey, is whether there is a conspiracy between, like, they've spoken to the Russians like, nobody should survive this, burn it all.
Yeah.
Or the corporate are just covering it up, but corporate don't really have all the details properly, so how would they know? So they must know something about Leviathan, the
Yes.
ship, or if they don't, corporate are just they're the 80s corporate evil.
Yeah.
And this was just at the end of the 80s, just going to the 90s. But this is the typical mega evil corporation of those film eras. It's like the RoboCop, not
OCP.
Yeah. Like, what are OCP doing? The most evil thing they can try. Why?
Right.
Because they're the corporation. Why would the corporation not do anything? Oh, it's just like Wayland Yutani. Oh, yeah. If either of those companies want to do something evil, they're going to go whole hog evil. Umbrella Corporation level evil. Why?
Right.
Because people invested in them, and I guess they demanded them do the most evil things.
Well, I mean, I think from what I've gathered from the film is that the Leviathan ship, the experiment was to mutate the crew so that the underwater environment would be more habitable.
Well, the Doc, this is again the Doc exposition. He's theorizing on what it could have been for, and he starts to explain. And again, there's a little bit more of an intellectual discussion about kind of what's going on, and it's nice. And again, conveniently qualified characters discussing the current factors. It was fun. I kind of thought that was a moment where you're like, okay, you've made sure these characters are in place to give us the exposition, and they're reliable sources for this exposition, where normally some horror films just don't tell you, which is where
You like the mystery of not knowing, whereas in this one, I'm like, I want to know about the creature.
Well, yeah, because they base it so much in science instead of being something from the abyss or something from another dimension or something from hell.
Yeah.
You know, it's all needs a little bit more grounding, and I think they do well with that. That's the one strength of the script and the casting here, where they've kind of set it up just right.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it appears to be a genetic aberration.
No shit.
What are you trying to tell us, Doc?
It has all the characteristics of deep-sea marine life. Scales, gills.
So with the creature being loose on the ship, the crew decide that they're going to need to arm up. And I do like the sequence where they grab flamethrowers and chainsaws and buzzsaws, and it's like, yeah, these are kind of, I guess, underwater equipment that you would have. I'm not quite sure about these massive flamethrower things.
No, you'd imagine they'd have like plasma cutters or something.
Right,
Kind of
yeah.
Rock, but no, it's, again, this is alien,
Exactly,
aliens
yeah.
sort of.
And so they get
logic.
attacked by tentacles, and you get the saws severing the tentacles, and blood squibs, and it's fun. It's
Yeah,
fun.
it's fun. Again, this isn't like the most gory film.
No.
I mean, some of the body horror is cool, especially later
Yeah.
on with.
Well, the next character to be attacked is Jesus. I think he's in the medical ward,
Yeah.
and it's like one of those tentacle creatures grabs hold of his arm, tightens around it, and then bites at his chest, and it looks like it's like a leech just draining him of his blood.
Yes.
Of course, it's Ernie Hudson, it's Jones who sees this, and it's just like, I'm just going to close the door and run away.
Yeah, and it's just like, we'll be right back. Gotta get some.
Yeah,
Guns.
I mean, it's the right response, isn't it?
Well, I know that's the funny
It's
thing.
like, what are you
I mean,
going to do?
I mean, there are rationalish responses to this, and the chain of events that follows, and it all works pretty well. By the time they get back, though, this.
Yes,
That's it. Hudson runs away, going, guard that door.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get some guns.
Yeah.
And then at that point, Cobb runs off as well. So they come back, and then that's where the door's sort of just been chewed through. And I'm like, oh, well, that looked like pressurized steel. How are they
Right.
going to win?
Right.
I mean, it's just chewed through like kind of really-
Industrial metal,
yeah,
like
a few
tinfoil.
inches of it, and I'm like, oh well, this is going to be a party. But they don't quite. This is where the monster consistency's all over the place, and this is from here on out. It's just kind of confusing, and the body horror's cool when it shows up, but then the monster's sort of a bit.
Well,
Weird.
Cobb is the next one to die.
Well, it kind of
he was infected.
There's no bodies left behind, so it doesn't just drink the blood; it assimilates the body.
Yeah, it drinks the blood, then assimilates the body to increase its mass.
Yeah.
And Cobb is the one who has what appears at first to be like a chest burster, where his chest is just kind of moving, and he's got like a mouth appearing on the palm of his hand.
Yes.
Like, what kind of freakish mutation is
They
this?
kind of cut away. They don't really show you the Doc's death.
No.
But the Doc dies, we assume, pretty certainly.
Yeah.
And then you're just left with...
Well, they see the Doctor's face in the skin of the creature as the creature passes.
Yes, that was
and
it.
it's a brilliant kind of silhouette as you see his face there. I was
Yes.
like, that's disturbing. That's frightening. And and towards the end, when the creature is attacking them, they actually see Jesus's face in the creature as well.
Yes.
And it's asking Beck to please kill him. And it's just like, oh my god, like, they're not dead yet.
The ones that are dead, but the
Yes,
ones that got
the ones that are being
alive.
assimilated alive, their intelligence is being incorporated in the creature, so it's learning from all these people it's absorbing.
And again, but
it's also they're
yeah.
half alive inside it.
And the Doctor sort of explains, oh, it's not properly learning. And I'm like, okay, that's your kind of get out 20. And again, the monster borders on being really threatening at moments in this, and then suddenly swings back to just being a monster they can just gun down.
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
sort of really strange, and that's my biggest gripe. Because at that point, it just killed everyone but Hudson, Weller, and the Willie, the doctor, the actress who plays Willie. She's down to 3, and I think the Pretty Olympics are in play here because again, it's young and star power. Kind of, they've killed off everyone through this. So you end up with just the 3 of them at this point. Although I think Willie separated from them because she was running. I think she was crying. Obviously, there's one point where she's crying in her underwear in a shower. Which is obviously a
Excuse for a shower sequence.
Yes, I mean it's more restrained than some films.
Yes,
but,
yeah.
And again, as I said, this is sort of more of a general audience fair action horror. So it's not. So I mean, it wasn't made as a B movie. I think it was clearly made as a big blockbuster.
I think they were aiming for it, or at least with a $20 million budget.
Yes.
And it's also Jerry Goldsmith's music score that also kind of elevates this film to another level.
Yeah, good.
Jerry Goldsmith also did the music for Alien, along with many, many other films. And the music in this, he incorporated whale songs into the beginning tracks.
Yeah,
and it
pretty
just
good.
really sets you into the atmosphere, this submerged station.
Well, it's one of the key components. It's like this film has some really top quality ingredients.
Yes.
Music, the sets, the monster, the actors. It should have worked better than it did. It's just unfortunate it didn't quite come together to win the. It was fighting as much better films at that time, and as we said, there's just a few janky things. It's not a bad film. It's just
Yeah.
it's more forgettable than it should be for the master.
Well, it's quite an action-orientated finale with but I should say before Doc got assimilated, he launched all of the escape pods to the surface, kind of dooming them all to die in this underwater station because he feared that if the creature got to the surface or got out, that it could spell the demise for all of humanity.
I know, and that's never really touched upon again. Again, not to keep picking at the script, I'm like, okay, so the Doc's done something that makes good sense. And then they escape anyway, and so does the creature in the finale sequence, because they go out in their suits and they kind of float up, and then the Leviathan sort of gets up there with them.
Well, it's a very rushed finale where
It's the
you've
only
had
bit
all
shot
of the
at sea,
action
yeah.
stuff. And yeah, they do kind of use those flotation devices to escape to the surface. And I kind of thought, I got the impression that the creature was killed with the hydraulic lift, because you see the creature's head, or its jaw at least, trapped, and the blood splashes all over Beck's visor.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so they've killed the creature by escaping, they launch themselves to the surface, and then they get attacked by sharks. I'm like, I was like, what a tragic ending if they all got to the surface and eaten by sharks.
As I said at the time, that would have made it a great subversive moment in action horror history. They got away from the monster, but they'll never tell their story because they were eaten by a pack of sharks. In actual fact, the sharks were just headbutting them.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe run, there's something coming, I don't know. Trying to shark like that, we're getting out of it.
But the Coast Guard was alerted, they fire off some flares.
I know, the Coast Guard maybe was looking for them. It's not clear.
Right.
Nothing's clear. At this point, the script doesn't care because it's an 80s action film.
It's the finale. It's all rushed together. And just before, like any good creature feature, the creature's got to come back for one last hurrah.
Yeah, Beck's just been... but Willie's just been taken up the helicopter, and Bex and Hudson are both still in the water. And then... Rah! And I'm not even sure what happens because the shots are so weird, and
it's incredibly poorly shot, this sequence. It's horribly edited. You cannot tell what happens to Ernie Hudson's Jones character.
he sacrifices himself, we think.
Where you hear him from off screen yell, "Save yourself!" and then he's submerged underwater and then floats away.
Yeah, and then Beck goes back for vengeance and throws one of the mining grenade bombs at it and blows it up.
It's a great one-liner moment, It's a great kind of explosion. But the creature at this point in full daylight just doesn't look quite right.
And this is...
they had problems with the suit at this time because obviously it was made of foam, which absorbed all of the water, which broke all of the puppeteering equipment, and so it wasn't moving properly. And of course, earlier in the film when we'd seen the creature, it's kind of stationary in every shot.
Yes.
You never see it moving at any speed whatsoever. It feels clunky and cumbersome, and which is why they masked it with a few jump cut shots.
And that's fine. That's the trick to get around, even with the best suits. If you stare at it too long, it becomes clear that it's a suit.
But I would have just liked one shot of the whole creature in frame, and I would have just liked one shot of the creature actually moving, other than just being stationary and moving in between shots.
And the water shot was again. It didn't look right. The way they're kind of flailing around in the water.
No.
They should have done it. I don't know how they should have shot it, but it felt like they were trying to do it too authentically in the ocean, where it might have been better to kind of. I mean, nowadays you'd green screen a lot of it, but you could have shot it in the water in a swimming pool and green screened around them. But it just felt like
they ran out of money.
They ran out of money, and it desperately feels like that. The whole ending at that point with Beck killing it with the one-liner, which is very 80s.
But that was great.
Yeah, and it was. It's kind of the 80s cheese moments.
But that's not the best part of this ending. I mean, other than Ernie Hudson's character being horribly killed off, almost off screen.
I know,
Ernie Hudson even said he had an argument with the director. He was like, "Look, my character's made it till like 2 minutes to the end of the film. Killing him off now is just horrible. Plus, he was kind of like the voice of the audience throughout the film as well." And so killing him off is just...
And it is the token black guy syndrome. It's like, why is he got to die? I mean, three of them
the argument is that it's the shock value. Like, he made it all the way to the end, but the creature's still alive, and so it's got to get one more kill.
it could have killed somebody from the helicopter who was running
Right.
or something, because it didn't. It was such a bad sequence of kill, and the problem is, as we said, the whole film has these kill moments that aren't really shown, and I think the same happens to Doc. I know you see his face later, but
Yeah. Yeah, you don't really see anybody die on screen.
no, and I know it's that kind of family-friendly film, perhaps it's trying to walk that line, but it's just such a weak death that I would have been like, you might as well just cut killing him.
Yeah.
Just let the three of them get away, and then Beck can go back for vengeance after seeing the face, maybe a face crying out for help on the body. I mean, that would have been a slightly more kind of human moment. It's just like,
thing
yeah,
to do,
I got to put him down.
But at the same time, I'm like, okay, so he threw that bomb, blew up the creature, but
Arms have survived.
we've seen severed legs mutate and grow into this monster, and now you've just blown it into how many chunks?
I know, and in the middle of the ocean.
In the ocean,
And
what's
nobody cares. Nobody even thinks twice about it. And this is the universe consistency just crapping itself.
Right,
Because none of it considers the grander picture, the consequences of their actions, or the consequences of this monster existing.
But you're not supposed to think about that. You're supposed to be thinking about Peter Weller punching Meg Foster in the face.
How do you feel?
Better. A lot better.
The villain gets a comeuppance as he strides off with the girl under his arm in the kind of bravado, not really traumatized by having seen all these people die horribly.
No, well, I mean, they've all experienced the horror of watching all of their friends die one by one. But yeah, in the ending, they're just like, "Ha!"
And both
victorious.
smirking as he punches the stupid corporate executive in the face. And
It's kind of almost worth it just to watch that end sequence.
it's so surreal, but that's this film in a nutshell. It's a surreal, in a not entirely complimentary way, experience. As it's a fine action film, but it's surreal because it doesn't make a lot of sense.
No. So, Jess, your favourite or least favourite scenes in the film?
I think it's where Doc's facing down the teethy hand. Because that's
What,
a cool...
for favourite?
Yeah, I think that's one of my favourite. I like it. My least favourite, I found Six Pack really annoying in this, but his interactions where he's trying to give sexual advances to girls just felt a little bit cringeworthy.
Yeah.
I know, and that, I mean, I think him being an annoying Joker was fine, but I think the way they were doing it, I just feel that straight. I know there's lots of other things to nitpick at, but that in the setup was the bit that kind of grated me, and then it went away quickly because he died pretty soon.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I know, I do like him, but
Yeah.
that sequence grated me. It was just weird.
Sure, yeah. I got quite a few favourite sequences from the film. I love the six-pack and Bowman thing hybrid. I thought, even though we only see it from like one or two angles and it's over very quickly, I thought the prosthetic work was really, really good. It was a believable hybrid monster, which makes your skin crawl just looking at. I thought the Jesus' moment where you see his face inside the creature and he's asking Beck to kill him.
Yes.
I was like, that for me was, horrifying because of that existential nightmare of imagining being assimilated by this fish monster, having no control anymore as your body is absorbed, but your mind is still intact. That is nightmare fuel for me.
Yeah, it is.
On a lighter note, I really love the sequence when they're talking to Miss Martin on the surface, and she says to them, "I know you've been through hell." And Jones turns around and says,
Gone. Bitch, we still here.
that was just such a real response.
I realize you must have gone through hell.
Gone. Bitch, we still here.
It just endeared me to Ernie Hudson's character even more.
Yeah,
He was just saying the very real things you would imagine.
yeah, the everyday guy doing the everyday thing. And again, I'm still bitter the ending killed him because I think that soured the film a little bit for me. Because
Well, that is my least favorite scene in the whole film, is that ending and killing off Jones's character.
They should have made a different monster suit or something else. I know the budget was running out, but they needed to do a pretty spectacular finale.
If they were going to kill off, the last character in the last moments, like in Aliens when Bishop gets flamed in two, they could have done something like that here, but they just didn't.
Yeah, or even Hudson could have been the one to kill the monster.
Yeah.
Have the explosive thrown to him, and he could go out.
With a bang.
Yeah, and it felt a damp squib finale. It didn't.
Yeah.
The monster was poorly put together in that sequence. The kill was pretty poor.
No, yeah. And of course, my last favourite scene is Meg Foster being punched in the face. From the moment Miss Martin turns around with that big, fake corporate smile,
80 suits.
you just want to punch it.
How do you feel?
Better. A lot better.
So, Jez, do you recommend Leviathan?
Yeah, it's a fun action with a dash of horror. I mean, that's the thing. It does feel more actiony in the clothes. I mean, it is. It's more of a mainstream horror than I expected, I think.
Sure.
I couldn't remember it that well when I finally got around to rewatching it. So yeah, I'd say anyone can enjoy watching it because it's fun for all the family because it really isn't that grotesque. It has
There's only one moment of nudity, and that's just a still image on a poster. So
yeah, I mean, as we said, like the shower sequence, she's in her underwear having a freak out moment. So it's not graphic nudity for the sake of it. She's just trying to clean herself after all the kind of body horror sequences she's seen. It's a tame family entertainment film. I would recommend it. I mean, go watch it. It's certainly more deserving and more memorable than a lot of kind of B movies.
yeah.
I mean, I think it's not original, but it certainly is entertaining because all the cast are fun to watch.
Hell yeah. I'm definitely going to be recommending Leviathan. It is a derivative but thrilling alternative to what came before. And it is inferior to Alien and The Thing, but that doesn't stop Leviathan from being a really entertaining film. The casting was very good and all the actors did a great job in their roles. Richard Crenna was particularly memorable as the Good Doctor. And of course, I wish Daniel Stern had more screen time, as I really love the energy he has when he's on screen. The set design in this film is also absolutely fantastic. It felt very believable, and I enjoyed watching this underwater station falling apart towards the end of the film. The music by Jerry Goldsmith perfectly accompanies the film, elevating the visuals and setting the right tone, adding to the horror and the suspense. The makeup and prosthetic work was expertly done, but the final monster was a little disappointing, hardly getting a full body shot and masked in lots of shadow and quick cuts. The ending also feels like it was incredibly rushed. Everything wraps up way too quickly, and then the credits are rolling. But it's still a film I've always remembered and like to revisit now and again for its great set, memorable performances and creature effects. It's a highly entertaining creature feature that's definitely worth a watch. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
I realize you must have gone through hell.
Gone? Bitch, we still here.